Here I have black and white. This line here that I just drew is the path that I want, and I want it to end about there. So closest area here is going to be black. Now I'm getting some white. The one thing you want to be careful of doing this side part of the forest is that you want to make the part closest to you black, and the further on you go to the middle it goes whiter. So what I like to do is put the black on the canvas and then put the white over the top of it and blend it on the canvas. And it seems to blend a lot better on there, and it makes it look more natural and gives it the spooky effect too. And then when you get to the back bit here, you just want to make it white. So you're still going to have black on your paintbrush, so it's going to look grey, but that's the start. And then for the left hand side, just do exactly the same as what you did on the right hand side, making it darker closest to you, and then lighten it up on the canvas as you get to the back. And then eventually we will make that white part at the back a bit whiter. And now, as I said, here I am putting another layer of white on here. The paint is still wet and I still have black on my paintbrush, but that's fine because I don't want this back really bright white. I just want it kind of a grey white. Now for the path, you do horizontal strokes. For the sides, we were doing vertical strokes. And for the path, you want it to be horizontal to make it look like a path. And do it the same as you did the side of the forest. You want it darkest, closest to you, and then add white on the canvas as you're moving down. Now I did brighten it up a fair bit because I didn't want it too black. So yeah, just follow those rules and your path will look good. Just lightening up the edges around here because I didn't want it too black, like I said, and it was just annoying me, so I had to add a little bit more white. And now it's time for the glue gun. Now I made 3 trees on each side from the glue gun. That's all I wanted to do because going further back it was just too hard to make it smaller. So the first tree is going to be the widest, and then the next tree is going to be skinnier. And see how I'm doing lines of glue in the tree trunk? That actually makes it look like bark when you paint it, and it looks really good. As you see, the end result, it looks like a spooky old oak tree with lots of craters. So just do the same on both sides. Remember, as you go along, make the trees smaller so that they look further away, and follow that path line, like go up on the diagonal so that you're not flat, because if you go flat then the path will look flat. And now it's time to make the branches on those 3 trees. Now just follow the rule, the base of the branch has to be thicker than the end of the branch, and don't go way out too far, and just do it the exact same way as you did the tree trunk. So make sure you put some glue inside the tree trunk so that when we paint it, it will look all barky and old and holy. Not holy, but you know, holes in it. Just as a side note, once I finish this painting, I do actually extend my branches a little bit because they're a little too short. As you can see, I've made 3 trees on each side, and they have their branches. Not all of them. And now I'm just going to put some gesso on here. Putting the gesso on the hot glue makes the paint stick to it a lot easier. You don't need to use the gesso, but it takes a couple of coats of paint, that's my phone, to get the paint to stick really well if you don't use the gesso. Okay, I'm getting some raw umber. And a paintbrush. Using the raw umber, paint over all of the trees, the base of the trees and the branches that you have done, make sure you try and do your best to cover the whole of the gesso. Get your brush down in those cracks there so that the tree is covered, because you don't really want the white poking out for the next step we do on the trees. So just do the best you can. And this is what both sides of the trees, both sides of the painting look like, both sets of trees look like when they're painted with the raw umber. You see how the glue makes it look like lots and lots of like little stringy bits of wood, and I really like the way this turned out, I really do. Using raw umber and your dagger striper brush, paint in the rest of the trees at the back, so there'll be about 5 of them. On one side I had more than the other, and make sure that they get skinnier as they go along, so they'll be really stick thin at the back. Now in hindsight I should have done the ones at the back before I did the glue ones, but I forgot that I was using glue, and so I just did it in the order I normally do it. So if you think about it, and I'll put a reminder at the beginning, maybe do the back trees before you do the glue trees, so that then the glue doesn't get in the way. I mean, it's not a big problem, I just worked over the glue. That wasn't a big problem at all. But if you don't want to work over the glue, do the back ones first. Now I started adding a little bit of white to the raw umber here on the right hand side of the trees that were facing the light there, because they'd be getting the most reflection. And on this other side, the white would be on the left hand side of the trees, if you get what I'm saying. You want that side to be lighter than the other side because it's in the shadow. And it'll be the same with the branches as well. You just got to figure out where the reflections are going to be, where the light's going to be hitting it, and make that side brighter. And now it's onto the branches. Now I didn't do mine dark enough, so later on in the clip I darken them with black. So here is where I'm putting the highlights on the trees on the right hand side. So it's on the left hand side of the trees because they're closest to that white there. Okay, I've got burnt umber and black, and I've also got some of these paper towels that are wet. They need to be wet to do this, so it needs to be ones that can take water. And burnt umber and black. And what I'm going to do, because I want it dark but I also want it brown, so a very dark brown. And I'm just going to stick it on here, just doing little bits at a time. Grab this, and I'm going to wipe it off. And my raw umber wasn't dry, so it's come off as well. So I shall wait. Wait until your raw umber is dry. I'm just fixing up the raw umber that I wiped off with a wet paper towel here, so you don't need to do this. Now for the highlights on this one, I just used pure white. I wanted to make it stand out, and that's why later on I actually make the branches black. So do the highlights for this and just make it pure white so that it really stands out and it really glows, because that white behind them is really bright. And don't forget to add some highlights to the glue trees as well. And now it's time for the reflection of the trees in the path, because the path is wet, so there's going to be a reflection. I'm using burnt umber, and make sure the top of the reflection is the same size as the base of the tree, and then narrow it down so it goes into it like a point or a triangle. Now I do make these darker. Make sure that these shadows start the same width and then go skinnier. Reflections, sorry. Now just have some white. Because the reflections that I'm going to put on the tree are going to also show up. Sorry, the highlights I'm going to put in the tree are also going to show up in the reflections. So here's where I decide that I want the branches darker down here, so I just use black and do the underside, not the highlighted side, but the underside of the branches black, and I do that along with all the trees that I've painted there as well, so their shadow side becomes black because the raw umber just wasn't dark enough for me. I wanted it to be darker. Just got some white. I'm just going to put some lines along here for reflections. Now in my spooky forest it's been raining, so these reflections need to be on the path to make it look like it's a wet, rainy day. But if you don't want your path to look wet, then you don't need to worry about these white lines. Also make sure you put white lines in between the trees at the edge of the path going all the way up to the end, just so the viewer can see this distinction between the path and the forest background. Okay, now for the umbrella that's going to be, whoops, I don't want it in the middle of the path, so I might put it over here. So my umbrella is going to be yellow. You can do yours whatever colour you want, actually. Since we're doing yellow, we have to do it white first. So using white and my image of an umbrella, which you can see on my phone there, it's actually easier to paint something if you're looking directly at it. So I just found an image of an umbrella on its side and just painted it. Now nothing else is the same as that umbrella that's on there, it's just the shape that I needed. But I shall do a traceable for you and it will be on Pinterest. Now make sure if you're going to paint it yellow that you do paint the very base layer of it white, because yellow is so weak, translucent, that you're going to have to do a lot of coats of it and it still won't look very good, especially considering it's like black. So even if you've got a really great yellow, it's still going to take a fair bit. So doing this white coat really helps you out. Now I just wanted a quick idea of where I was going to have the rips and the tears, so where I didn't need to paint yellow. You don't need to do this step if you don't want to, because you can paint the black over the yellow, no problem. It's not going to cause an issue. But I just wanted to know where I was going to put the rips, because I'm a visual person and I need to know. Using white and a round brush, paint in the inside of the umbrella. Now I don't paint where I've got the black, but you can paint over it, like I said before, no problems. I'm just a visual person and sometimes I just need to see what I'm going to be doing before I can actually paint it. So it was easier for me not to paint over the black. I know it sounds stupid. And when you're painting in the white, the umbrella, and the yellow as well, when you go over the white, make sure you try and stay with the direction of the segments of the umbrella. It's kind of like a mandarin, it has segments where each wire is, there's a different segment. So just try and paint in the direction that that will be going. Just using black here to go over the rips where I'm going to be having them, just so I can, you know, visually see them again. Now I'm adding more reflections here because it just didn't look like it had enough, so I add quite a fair bit more. And just painting over that white once it's dry with a coat of yellow. Okay, now that all of this paint here is dry, just on the ones with glue, I'm going to use a paper towel. Okay, I've got some paper towel and I have burnt umber and a little bit of black. Now I'm going to make sure that my paper towel is wet. And I mean, you know, really wet like that. And mix the burnt umber and the black. Still want it fairly brown. And then get your wet paper towel. hopefully you can see the difference. So do this on all the glue trees. See how the black and the burnt umber has gone into the holes of the tree and make it look darker and shadowier. And now they're both done. So now we're going to do our second or third layer, is it, on our umbrella, and hopefully get the umbrella done. And then the final thing will be the highlights on the trees here. Now I have some white. I'm going to fill in that black hole there. So I'm just doing some highlights on this side. And now it's time to paint in the spokes of the umbrella. I do this in Mars Black, and as you can see they're a little bit curved, and I also do the circle around the middle of the umbrella because there's usually a bump there with a little metal bit on it, so there should be a little shadow there to show that there's a gap. But yeah, just do the spokes the way that I've got it here. I'll have them on the traceable as well so you can see the angle that they go on. Now make a grey with black and white and do the shadow bit of the pointy bit that's on the top of the umbrella. I really don't know the technical name of it. But yeah, this is just to indicate that there is a shadow there. And now here I am, I'm just going to go back over where I've got the cuts. So as you can see, the black goes very easily over the yellow, so you don't need to worry about avoiding it like I did. I don't know, just wanted to. Now any holes you have in the umbrella are not going to be smooth, neat, perfect holes, so you want to do dabbing motion to try and get it ripped looked. And now just going over this side of the umbrella with white again to try and get the highlights back into it because I painted over it with the yellow. Now I've got raw sienna. And I'm just going to do a bit of shadow here. Now I wasn't 100% happy with the shadow colour, so I decided to go over it with a little bit of burnt umber just to make it a little bit deeper and a little bit browner. Using raw sienna just to do a couple of highlights. I'm just working on the umbrella. What I've done is I've done a white line around the black rips, and now I'm just getting the yellow and going over these dark spots, so it won't completely cover them, but it will change the colour so that it's more yellow but with a dark spot. See how you can still see the dark under the yellow? And now for the reflection of the umbrella. This is the part that makes it look really realistic. And you want the reflection to be larger on top or longer on top and then work its way down to a small little point. So I'm going to change these reflections. I'm going to make them more black. Now the main reason I changed the reflections to black is just because I wanted to. You can leave yours burnt umber if you're happy with burnt umber. Now the next bit I'm going to show you is how, see how there's still burnt umber left around the outside of the black that I just did? Now this is how I'm going to fix it up. I get some black and white on my paintbrush and I go sideways, so make sure you go horizontal and just go over the burnt umber that's there. It doesn't matter if you go over some of the reflections, you can always put them back in. Now you're just doing your lines there. Now I'm still not happy with that. As you can tell, it's a theme with my paintings. So I get my mop brush and I just blend it in a little bit just to make it look like it's more, part of the original painting. And you can't tell now just looking at it. Now after putting the white of the reflection, white paint in the reflection, also put a little bit of white paint on the tree as a really bright reflection, and go horizontal but kind of a curved horizontal so that you're showing that the tree is curved. Now here I am just going over with the black again because I wasn't really happy with the way it was before, because it wasn't pure black that I was using. So now I'm just using pure black, and I'm doing the underside of all the branches and the shadows on all the trees with the black. I do apologise for the changes that I do tend to make sometimes. It's just that I'll paint something and then I'll sit there and I'll look at it and I'll get really angry because there's something about it I don't like. And once I figure it out, I have to change it. So that's why I added the black, and that's why later on, after I finish painting and finished filming, I add more longer branches on the glue and do that whole process again. Okay, now for the final bit of the umbrella and almost the end of the painting, go around the edges with black just to define the edges. And then once I've done that in black, I'm going to grab titanium white and do a reflection on the edge that's closest to the right, so the left of the black.
Doubted all that I could do, knowing what I need to do. All I can say, the word is thank you. I think it's what you need to push away from the shore, amongst the waves, exactly where I wanna be. I am where I wanna be. Remember the start, when my future needed clarity. Yes, I needed clarity, so I could see how you'd react, how you'd react to me. So much differently, 'cause I am different to you. Every time I look back,
And there she is.